VS Joshi, and here is my colleague, Davor. And yes, I'm from EMC Emerging Technologies Division. Just a quick thing. Before I started with EMC, I was in the data and storage management industry. I was with Compact Storage Works, NetApp, EMC, and then I started something of my own. I started a social and mobile app, so completely different thing. But again, considering the fact that we are into this whole digital transformation world, and apps are going to be one of the ways by which we are going to digitally transform our enterprises and our industries as such. So that has come in very, very handy as such. But what has happened is we have been standing outside and we have been telling people, hey, we are from EMC, and they say, but what about Dell and things like that? That comes immediately after that. So just let me get that thing out of the discussion over here by just showing this one slide. Yes, Dell, as you must know, you must have known that Dell had acquired EMC almost a year back. The announcement was made a year back, but it's only 1 week back, exactly 1 week back, that the acquisition has been completed. We are still used to calling ourselves as people from EMC, but technically speaking, we are now all Dell employees. Yeah, the umbrella arm of the entire family is called as Dell Technologies, and this was the biggest acquisition in the history of high-tech industry. It was like a $67 billion acquisition, and if you look at the revenue numbers, like $74 billion in total revenues. And essentially, Dell Technologies is made of 7 different companies. Yeah, the old Dell is still called as Dell. Yeah? The old EMC is now called as Dell EMC. And yes, we have VMware, Pivotal, RSA, VirtuStream, and all these other companies. Yeah, so there are a total of 7 companies over there. Yeah, and as you can see, 98% of the Fortune 500 companies, Dell Technologies, we engage with 98% of the Fortune 500 companies. And there are a couple of things that Mr. Michael Dell, our CEO, is very proud of. Is in Gartner has the magic quadrants for those various things. Like in the magic quadrant, they have companies that are in the leadership position, some who are challengers, and some who are innovators and niche players. So we are in 20 magic quadrants as in the leadership position. Now, this is something that Michael Dell is very, very proud of and things like that. So as you can see, when it comes to enterprise, the excitement, there is a tremendous excitement in the company, because when it comes to enterprise, we feel that yes, right from your laptop, desktop, server, storage, yes, we are in the leadership position, and yes, we are in a position to take care of the enterprise needs of any company as such. Okay, so this was just one slide plug, and that is mainly because many people were asking us outside about Dell and things like that. Now, coming to the enterprise, we are in a very, very interesting phase as far as OpenStack is concerned. OpenStack is 6 years old. OpenStack has passed its toddler years. It has gone through its teething challenges and things like that. And now OpenStack is 6 years old. The value proposition of OpenStack is very well defined. And if you look at this thing, this particular number, saving money over alternative infrastructure choices, that is the #1 priority for all these companies. That is the main reason why companies are going for OpenStack. Like this 66% is this priority #1. Yeah, so that is one of the main priorities, and increasing the operational efficiency. Those are the top 2 priorities as far as users kind of embracing OpenStack is concerned. Yeah, but at the same time, and these are the way. Okay, but at the same time, there are also so there are some challenges, but we'll come to the challenges later. What I'm trying to convey over here is, yes, OpenStack has proven its value proposition. There are some successful customer references as far as OpenStack is concerned. And here are some of the so here are some of the companies. I don't know why this kind of moved. Here are some of the companies in Asia, Europe, and Americas and Canada, and I don't know why we can't see the Canada and Americas, but okay, so I think these are the companies that are essentially implementing OpenStack for building their own public cloud. They have implemented OpenStack for building their public cloud. In fact, in Europe, okay, data center, I think their booth is just outside the room. Yeah, so I think you might want to check them over there. So when it comes to public cloud, also OpenStack has proven its value proposition. Now, just 2 weeks back in New York City, we had OpenStack Days New York. And in that OpenStack Days New York, we saw these users, OpenStack users, coming on the stage and talking about their implementations, their deployment, the challenges that they faced while implementing OpenStack in their environment, how they overcame their challenges and things like that. And it was absolutely a packed crowd with other OpenStack users, other prospective users, companies that were having OpenStack as a proof of concept running in their environments. They were there in the audience trying to learn from these people who have already successfully implemented OpenStack in their environment. So as you can see, that it's a very, very interesting phase OpenStack has come to, wherein it's 6 years old. It has been proven. It has kind of proven its value proposition with the public cloud, with all these big companies who have lots and lots of employees who can work on OpenStack and things like that. But when it comes to enterprises are looking for stability. They're looking for simplicity. They're looking for consistency. They're looking for scalability and things like that. And there is where there is a bit of a challenge at this point in time, because again, we are in that particular phase as such. And this is where companies like Dell EMC now come into picture, where we are saying that, yes, we can help companies, we can help enterprises, or we can help enterprises get into the OpenStack world by making OpenStack much more enterprise ready. There is where EMC comes into picture. And again, this is again from the April 2016 user survey. If you look at it, the good part is, okay, more proof of concepts are moving to production stage. Yeah, it's the 6% rise from 59% to 65%. Overall NPS score, NPS is net promoter score. Yeah, net promoter score is 29. It's supposed to be a very good score. It is on the top 20%. What it means is essentially they interviewed 1,000 OpenStack users, and on a scale of 0 to 10, they asked them, would you recommend OpenStack to other users? And if you gave a score of 9 or 10, then you are a promoter. If you gave a score of 0 to 6, then you are a detractor. And then they subtracted the detractor from the promoters, and they said, okay, this is a score. 29 it was a score, and essentially this score is supposed to be really very good. Yeah? And somehow OpenStack APIs have now become the standard for the enterprise infrastructure as a service. But at the same time, there are a lot of things like stability, the stability is a question mark, the inconsistency that is there, the complexity that is there. And all these things are there because if you look at OpenStack, all said and done, OpenStack is 50+ projects, okay? 50+ projects trying to address each and every use case as such, yeah? And because of all these things, there is a certain amount of complexity that is there. All these 50 projects are being governed by, are being run by 50 different groups as such. So there is this inconsistency as far as the governance is concerned. And because of all this, the coordination between these various projects and things like that is a challenge. And that is what kind of brings that instability into the whole deployment as such. Yeah? And again, this is something, the ugly part, the deployment difficulty. That is, each and every user, they say, okay, they keep on saying this, the deployment difficulty is indeed a challenge at this point in time. And one of the guys who's an open source guru, Dirk Hondel, I guess, he said just at VMworld the other day, he said that when it comes to open source, what happens is developers are extremely interested in working on the big problem. They're extremely interested in solving the 90% of the problem. But after they have solved 90% of the problem, after the thing works in a test environment and things like that, the last 10%, the last mile is something that they kind of find very tedious or they don't want to deal with it. Yeah? But as OpenStack implementors, you have to work with that 10%. Yeah? And that is where companies like Red Hat come into picture, who are trying to make OpenStack ready for the enterprise. And so this is the most ugliest part. So depending upon the enterprise's comfort level as far as their resources are concerned, as far as their the internal capabilities are concerned, yeah?
I would just add something to this. So that OpenStack is success some of the proof points that we see are actually with major companies like SAP, for example, that is setting for the next generation of their software for S4 as a set of requirements, a set of OpenStack APIs. So basically, a requirement for the deployment of their software in the future will be an environment that supports a set of OpenStack APIs. And believe me, if SAP goes on something, then they absolutely tested this, and they absolutely believe that this platform can do this. So we are beyond the time of questioning if OpenStack will be a success.
Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, depending upon the enterprises or the comfort level with their resource skills, with their internal talent that they have to implement OpenStack or not, these are the various ways by which they can consume OpenStack. Yeah? The top one is, let's say, managed cloud. This is the most hands-off approach as far as consuming OpenStack is concerned. Then you come to the distros. So you have companies like Mirantis and Red Hat and SUSE are right over there as distros. Do it yourself. Okay, this is the most hands-on kind of a thing. You just get the you go to openstack.org and get the software from the GitHub, and that's how you start moving on the do-it-yourself cloud. And then there is this turnkey OpenStack cloud, and we'll go through all these one by one. Yeah. So if you look at the managed cloud, yeah, as I mentioned, the managed cloud is the most hands-off approach to. Sorry, I don't know why the title is not there. Okay, it's the most hands-off approach to cloud, and in this particular, basically the other entity, the other business entity that is managing the cloud, they create the cloud, they manage the cloud, they provide the support. And you, as a customer, is essentially supposed to just have a domain operator. And the domain operator, that job is essentially a very administrative job, in the sense creating the new users, defining their quotas, kind of working on the what can be called for cloud consumption, managing the cost, and essentially the business partner troubleshooting and things like that. So as a user, as a customer, your IT department just has to provide a domain operator, because everything is being taken care by the managed hosting company. Yeah? Okay, so this something is messed out over here, but okay. So this is the title is distro over here, okay? And in this particular thing, as you can see, in a distro model, essentially you are doing a lot of stuff. You know, you are building and controlling a huge portion without doing it alone, because here is a distro company like SUSE or Red Hat or Mirantis who is there to help you. Yeah? And they are essentially providing you the tools to make the most of the OpenStack platform. Things like testing, bug fixes, these are the kind of things that they will do. Now, for you to manage, in addition to having the domain operator, you also need the cloud architect. You also need the cloud operator. So you have to have these skills within your enterprise so that you can use the distro model for consuming OpenStack. Yeah? And as you can see, as far as the architects are concerned, they will select the hardware and software infrastructure. They will design the config cloud, and they will determine what kind of services, whether it is storage services, networking services, or compute services that this particular cloud will provide. And then they will hand off to the operators for the day-to-day operations of the cloud. And yes, the operators will be essentially responsible for the performance management, for the capacity management, for troubleshooting, for security, and things like that.
Just in addition to this, you heard the keynote today, Petty Power, and sorry, I forgot the name of this second company. But this is exactly what they were doing. I mean, you remember they got together 4 different companies with them to build their environment, because they need a supplier for network, they need a Red Hat, they need a supplier for hardware, and so on and so on. This is what we are talking about here.
So this is as far as the distros are concerned. And now when it comes to do-it-yourselves, yes, there are many companies who would like to have unlimited amount of flexibility and unlimited amount of customization. yes, do it yourself is the way to go. Companies like Walmart Labs will never go for distro or something like that. They will do it themselves. But again, you need to have that amount of resources. You need to have that kind of talent within the company as such. Yeah? Companies like Facebook, Google, they do it all by themselves and they can justify it because of the scale that they have. Yeah? So in addition to having the domain operator, the cloud architect, the cloud operator, you also need an engineering team. And this engineering team is now going to do the kind of work that your distro team was doing, yeah, in a do-it-yourself approach. So they will be essentially working on the advanced support, implementation of the whole thing, debugging, packaging, and testing, and all those kind of things. And yes, if in a do-it-yourself, if in case you are trying to go for the quickest way of deploying OpenStack, going for the free version of the distro software's release might be a way to go. Again, there are pros and cons for that, but that can be one of the ways to go about it. So again, these are the do-it-yourself challenges. Now, just to drill deeper into this do-it-yourself mode, or in that model, you can see if somebody wants to deploy a private cloud, a private OpenStack cloud, these are the various things the person has to think about. Planning for this thing, kind of coming up with a budget for something like that, making a business case and things like that, right from design and architecture, hardware acquisition, hardware install and configuration, software deployment, which is the most difficult part, the operations, logging, monitoring, reporting. And another very important thing is the upgrades part of it. The upgrade, as you all know, there is a semi-annually, they have a new release as far as OpenStack is concerned. So yes, after every 6 months, you are essentially going for a newer upgrade. Now this can be a very this can be a process which will kind of disturb your entire infrastructure as such, And so these are the various challenges a company which tries to do it yourself. And yes, if in case the customer has the resources, if they need that unlimited customization, then they do go for these kind of things. Yeah. Okay. So again, this is establishing a. These are again the challenges of the planning. They have to establish a use case. I'm going to run very fast through these things because these are essentially we are highlighting the challenges that a company that is trying to do it themselves. What are the challenges that they will be facing? They'll be trying to establish a use case. They'll have to show a need for why we need this kind of infrastructure. You have all these cloud native apps. For these cloud native apps, a different kind of infrastructure is required. For these cloud native apps, they use that 12-factor app principles as such. And for those kind of things, a different kind of infrastructure is required. They have to make a case for something like this. They have to get the budget for the hardware because, okay, even if it is open source, it's not free. Yes, there is a requirement as far as hardware is concerned. They will not have the expertise as far as even for the small projects. When it comes to the cloud, the architecture and design, they have to think about all these things. They have to think about what hardware, what storage hardware, what networking, and what are the compute resources that we'll need, what kind of hypervisor we are going to use. So all these decisions, they have to make thousands of decisions before they can come up with a private cloud as such. When it comes to software, okay, which company's distribution would you use? What kind of OS would you use? I mean, configuration management.
Just a side remark on this. Basically, the content or what you should take away from this slide is, if you are doing this process yourself, you have a lot of decisions. But the reality is that at the end, it's pretty much impossible to make the optimal decision for everything. Which basically means at the end, you will have a 90% solution, okay? Which is exactly the same whatever you are doing. So the idea that a do-it-yourself implementation will bring you something that's better than any other implementation that uses resources better or something like this it's kind of a dream that we cannot achieve, because if you're using the public cloud, you will have a 90% solution. If you're doing this, you will get a 90% solution, because you will not go beyond this. And if you are doing the next one that will come is turnkey appliance, you will also get a 90% solution.
Okay. Again, I think you just now covered the networking piece, right? Yeah, so these again a lot of
yeah, it just continues. I mean, the other part of reality is, and we heard this today as part of the beginning, it's very, very hard to get OpenStack specialists, but this is by far not the only thing you need. I mean, OpenStack specialists, okay, you can find 2 people that will know about OpenStack, okay, and they can run a team. But you need specialists for everything, from networking to hardware to all of the layers in between. And this is where it starts to be extremely expensive doing do-it-yourself stuff. And just a little bit of a background. The latest statistics, and sorry, it's from Silicon Valley, it's not from Europe, I don't know the numbers here. But in Silicon Valley, an OpenStack specialist costs 25% more than any other software specialist. Just as a fact on the side.
And at the same...
So, I mean, you can quote me.
and we have an example of a company called LivingSocial. And this company, they build their private cloud based upon OpenStack and things like that. And sometime later, the entire team en masse left the company and went to some other company. And here it is, LivingSocial have the OpenStack-based cloud, but nobody to kind of manage it, or nobody who knew what were the decisions that was taken by the earlier team. The earlier team took certain decisions as far as hardware is concerned, as far as software is concerned, as far as various configurations are concerned, and there's nobody over here who can continue on with that thing. So again, you have a cloud, but okay, now you don't have the people who can operate it, who can manage it, and who can run that thing. You know, it's not only about having the talent to build it, but we also need the talent to operate it, and have to keep that talent for a long time. Again, this is all about the same kind of challenges that you'll have to face if you're trying to build it yourself. Again, as far as the cloud monitoring and reporting, now usually what happens is, okay, so again, your OpenStack thing has to integrate with your monitoring tools, with your reporting tools, with your billing tools, the chargeback or showback kind of tools, user management, user support. Again, so again, here are some of the reality checks. You know, cloud design and architecture is not easy. Cloud deployment is not easy. Cloud operation is not easy. Hiring a full stack engineer and at the same time keeping that person is not easy. So there is some other way by which we can deal with the situation, and what we have currently is
a comment. Is the term full stack engineer known here? What we mean by this? You have a very, very limited number of people that are able to debug a problem across several layers, okay? This is not OpenStack engineer. This is someone that understands that under OpenStack there's other things that have to run, and maybe it's not an OpenStack problem. Maybe it's a problem of a switch configuration. Okay.
Okay. Why don't you take this one, yeah?
Okay. So what we did several years ago is pretty much we looked at all of this and we said, okay, this is one choice, and definitely there will be a lot of customers that have to do their own implementation. They have their own requirements and so on. But there is quite a number of customers that just don't have OpenStack or don't have cloud building as part of their business. I mean, why would you do something that actually does not bring you money, that just costs you money? and do it on your own and basically run the risk that you are failing, because realistically a lot of open source projects are failing because of one or the other reason. I mean, essential person in building your private network or in your private cloud gets upset about some manager and leaves the company, and what do you do then? So to take this risk away, we pretty much started building something that would be easy to deploy for an average customer. And the premise was, I have to be able to run it. I consider myself as not exactly geek, as a normal person that knows a little bit about IT. And it has to be integrated across all of the layers. So you shouldn't have to take care of networking. You shouldn't have to take care of hardware. You shouldn't have to take care of OpenStack deployment or anything in between. It should be pretty easy to run, pretty easy to deploy, and pretty easy to upgrade. And this is where we created actually the term turnkey cloud that we are using here. It's pretty much an OpenStack system that you can put on your location. It runs in few hours, and you can manage by yourself through a very simplified interface. You don't need to know details of how your Nova compute works. You don't need to know details of how your switch is configured or anything like this to run this. Typically, an average IT administrator will be able, after a training of about 2 weeks, to run this appliance. And if it goes beyond this, a turnkey cloud communicates with us in this case and tells us there is a serious problem, and we can look at it.
So I think
that's kind of the concept here, what we are calling turnkey cloud. And we are not the only company that is in this area. There are different concepts. We call it turnkey cloud because it's managed by you. There are other companies in the area that completely manage the system for you. So the portfolio is always pretty big. You just have to find whatever is the best solution for you.
Yeah, so what has happened here is we have a certain point of view regarding what combinations work very well and things like that. So we have kind of said, okay, as far as hardware is concerned, this kind of hardware will come together, this kind of software. So that decision making that was there, which was on your plate, has been taken, and what we are giving you is a hyper-converged system which has compute, storage, networking, software, everything together. And when it comes to management of it, we have taken the OpenStack software, certain parts of OpenStack software, we have integrated with our EMC source or with our software, with management and monitoring and reporting software, and that entire thing as a system we have packaged it to you. So now you can create your own private cloud by having this system in your environment, and that's what we call it as a turnkey system. So all the what can be called as a complicated, complex part, we have a certain point of view, we have implemented that, and we are giving the whole system to you. Yes, your choice of certain things is limited because of this particular approach as such. But the question is, what is it that you are more interested in running your applications or about the basic underlying infrastructure as such? Yeah? So, and as OpenStack becomes mainstream, as OpenStack, if you want to make OpenStack be adopted by the enterprise in a very wide, wide proportion, in a great proportion, then yes, there is where companies like Dell EMC come into picture, and we try to make OpenStack enterprise ready by putting our own little sauce on it, and by hardening it through various testing and debugging. As far as upgrades are concerned, whenever the upgrade comes, we test the upgrade internally before pushing the software to the customers. So as far as the customer is concerned, if they get the software from our system, yes, the whole upgrade process will work smoothly, because yes, we have tested it in our environment as such. Yeah? So those are the various benefits of going for a turnkey appliance. And and so this is how we are closing the gap. If you look at all these green lines, green lights over here, these are essentially the green lights. Again, this is for a specific kind of a customer. We are not looking to sell this thing to Google, Facebook, Walmart, and Comcast, and Time Warner, and things like that. Because yes, they have multiple and hundreds of their employees who are working on these kind of things. They have OpenStack expertise in their environment. So this product is not for them. But when it comes to enterprise, when it comes to companies which are 1 or 2 level notches below that, yes, this is a solution that works, and we are trying to close the gap by this way as compared to the other models. And yes, so this is what we have introduced just last month. We introduced the turnkey OpenStack IaaS. It is called as VxRack Neutrino. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it is a hyper-converged system. It is the enterprise-grade software and support. Yes, if something goes wrong because you have not built it yourself, you can just call. If in case your people go away, not a problem. You can just call one call to the Dell EMC line, and you can get your problem resolved. Yeah. So this is.
In principle, what we are doing is, some of you might be a little bit younger than I am, but some of you will still remember in the early days, you build a PC by components. You bought the motherboard, you bought the RAM, you bought the processor, you bought controllers, and plugged all of this in, and so on. And now you're buying something like this. And sorry, I have to cover the logo. But you're buying something like this, and no one cares anymore about components because it's much easier. And it comes with your Windows 10, or it comes with your Linux, or whatever you have on your system. And that's it. And this is what we are seeing kind of is the direction. When things get enterprise ready, you see more and more of kind of a smartphone-like solutions, or I called it toasters at the beginning, but supposedly I'm not allowed to use this term anymore. It's basically you're buying an integrated solution because it really does not matter so much anymore what the details are. You don't care about this. And we think that OpenStack is now in the level where we can build stuff like this with it. Okay. So this is kind of the basic term. This is what we started building 2 years ago. This is what we have on the market. But at the end, the decision is yours.
And by the way, we do have a white opinion brief written by IDC about the whole turnkey system as such. If in case you're interested, just stop by our table, and you can get that opinion brief from IDC. Okay. Well, yeah, please go ahead.
So for the addressable market for OpenStack clouds, what percentage do you think is covered by kind of turnkey appliance solution?
It's pretty in its infancy stages right now. Yeah. So we have companies like Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. They are also into this particular turnkey thing. We have recently announced a product. Many of the hyper-converged players, they are also trying to get into this space. But again, if you look at it, OpenStack itself is only 6 years old. Yeah. So yes, there is a lot of hardening of certain things that is happening. So it is very much in its infancy stage. We do feel that for the next growth spurt for OpenStack, turnkey is going to play a very crucial role, because when it comes to enterprises do not have the kind of technical resources, the financial resources of Google or Facebook or Amazon or something like that, or Comcast or Walmart. They don't have it. And for them, having this kind of a system which gives them the OpenStack flexibility and things like that, so that certain applications can move between the private cloud and public cloud and all those kind of things. So for them, this turnkey OpenStack is going to be the key thing. Yeah.
So the solution, I'm gathering this is a hardware and software solution sold as an appliance. Mm-hmm. And then can customers bring their own server racks in and plug it in and get it controlled by this?
they can bring their own racks, but all of the hardware is from us inside. So switches have to be ours, and processing nodes and so on have to be ours. But to answer your question from our belief, okay. When we talk to the customers and when we saw different use cases, at the end, my belief is that about 80% of customers would be satisfied by a turnkey appliance. Now, I'm not saying that 80% of customers could be satisfied by our turnkey appliance, okay? The percentage is much smaller. I mean, you have to imagine we are in the 1.1 version. We are addressing a subset of this market. But the reality is that if you look at the customers and when we are talking to the customers of different sizes, most of them have very common set of requirements. And yes, you have some exotic customers. You always will have them that will be out of this. And these are this 20%. But for 80%, the requirement overlap is so extremely high that it is possible to build a turnkey appliance for them. And like I said, I'm not saying that our appliance satisfies this 80%. Far from this.
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you switch this device on and you're trying to integrate existing enterprise stuff, like networking, authentication stuff, what are the usual trouble spots?
The biggest trouble spot we have is that when you're looking at devices on the scale that we are building, you actually need a quite substantial software network to run this. So from the integration perspective, the biggest problems we always had were dealing with the network department and telling them that we actually need 4 different internal networks or network ranges, because they are for administration and this and this and this and this, and they cannot overlap and so on and so on. And if you are dealing this with a system that goes beyond 200 nodes, and you are running, let's say, 50 VMs per node, you are here at 10,000 addresses that you need. And these were the biggest challenges we had. The other challenges that we had is that a lot of companies are not internally organized in the way to be able to deal with turnkey solutions, okay? They still have a separate networking department, a separate storage department, a separate this department, a separate other department, and get all of them together and pretty much bring them on the same page can take a lot of time. So there are customers where those processes are taking months or even years. This is probably, from the perspective of bringing something like this into a company, the biggest problem. Networking is a technical implementation problem.
You had a question?
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges with turnkey systems, managed local systems, and you're right, there are a number of people out there doing that. One of the challenges is, one of the pluses of OpenStack is that there is so, the API is open. There are many people building, plugins and so forth. I'm assuming that in this scenario, you'd say to customers, you don't plug anything in underneath the OpenStack API, should we say? No new Cinder drivers, no new network drivers. You do all that. That's assumable, or is that not the case?
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, okay.
So there are a few things that I would always look in any kind of a turnkey appliance, okay? One thing is the interface that you are working with. In this case, the OpenStack interface should be standardized. So should be something where you can theoretically at any time take your application that runs against this appliance and run it against something else. This is for me a non-negotiable standard for any kind of implementation. Because if you are going beyond this, you are dependent on the vendor. In reality, you're a little bit more dependent on the vendor, because if you invested 5 million in something, you're not throwing it away tomorrow. But this is one thing. The other thing is, when you are looking at the appliance, you want to have the guarantee from the vendor that the appliance actually works. And this is something that you want to have with this. So if I have, let's go back to my example of a toaster. If my toaster doesn't work, I don't want to call 5 different vendors to get it working. I have to have one vendor that I go to. These are kind of the 2 criteria I have to have here. The things where I see this will go a little bit further is, if you're comparing the public network currently with private networks, the public cloud with private clouds. Public cloud currently is offering plenty of services, okay? It's a compute service, it's a storage service, it's the archiving service, and all of this. And in the next 2 to 3 years, I see actually that this kind of simplicity of the public network will go into the private network. I mean, there are first efforts into this, but there's a huge difference of how public and private still works here. So this will come kind of soon, where you will have multi-service private clouds available. Kind of a little bit of an outlook. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Does this change what you might do? All of this seems to be implying that you're more likely to actually just provide those customers, lease those customers racks wherever they want them, and you're, so that they can just run the software on them, and you actually become more of a service provider, more of a private cloud provider, in the same way that the public
So,
products are out.
okay.
Big enough to do that.
The question goes pretty much into the area of, are we changing now from vendor into a service provider?
Adding that on.
This is kind of not our goal, although we can do this. Okay, if you look at Dell Technologies, there's a virtual stream pod that has actually this service model, and they will be offering this appliance also as a full service appliance. So, but our goal altogether with this specific appliance for now is, you know, we really want to create something that you put at your place and give under your simplified administration. And basically, the part of our administration is so small because we are handling just emergencies, that this is just a regular maintenance that you have with any system. So this is still our goal for the model here. There is definitely one benefit to this model, and there are some complexity of this model. The benefit of this model is actually that you can run it behind a firewall, okay? We can run this system with zero connection to us. The problem with this is, of course, that it still requires a certain level of knowledge on your side. Now, there's another company that starts with C that's offering a different model where they completely manage the appliance, and with this, they are taking pretty much all of the knowledge requirements, or way more of knowledge requirements out of you. Like I said, you have the complete portfolio. You can be completely left or completely right, or let's turn this around, and it's your choice.
The first one, right? The managed cloud one, right? Yeah. That is
Managed private clouds.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's a sort of.
It is a sort. You know, the market is still so new. Actually, let me be very, very straightforward. If you look at the OpenStack market, very few companies actually make money with this. okay? There's a company that starts with R that definitely makes a lot of money with it. There's maybe a company that starts with M that makes money with it. And for the rest of the companies worldwide, we are still trying to find actually a good business model for it. And we don't know. I mean, yes, are we making money with it? We are making some money with it. I cannot tell you exactly how much because this is confidential information. But we are still pretty much looking at different kinds of customers to tell us what is the best way to work together.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.